Sometimes the universe aligns the right people at the right time. Today I tell the story of how a chance meeting with strangers led to an unexpected visit from a spirit, and how that visit brought a message of closure and peace. Welcome to episode 23 of My True Ghost Stories. So I was seeing this guy. This relationship was so over. We had nothing in common, and all the newness had completely worn off, so it was just boredom and irritation and trying to think of things to talk about. But we had, in a more romantic time a month or two earlier, booked a weekend trip in the Poconos, and I really wanted to go. The Poconos is a popular vacation spot near to New York City, and here's a description from a travelogue. The Pocono Mountains region of Pennsylvania has been a beloved destination for generations of vacationers seeking fresh air and top-notch hospitality. I put a link in the show notes in case anybody wants to look up the Poconos. And this is true about the Poconos. And this resort that we had booked for this vacation had 2 pools, one indoor, one outdoor, a workout room, beautiful grounds, a nightclub. This guy that I was seeing, who I didn't like so much, was a really good dancer. And my interest in this vacation overrode my irritation with this partner. He wasn't that bad. We just had nothing in common. So we went. We drove there, and we managed to find some things to talk about on the ride. He spoke a second language besides English, a language that I was trying to learn. So that filled some time, the practicing of the other language, and the ride was only about an hour and a half, so it was not that hard to fill the time. We arrived, we checked in. Our room was a beautiful condo-style first-floor room with all sorts of romantic flair, none of which was interesting to this here couple. But the woods were right outside the door, and the pools were right down the path next to the workout room, and it was so nice to get out of the city for a few days. We arrived late morning. Check-in was at 11 a.m., and we headed to lunch soon after putting our bags in the room. At this resort, meals were included in the price. Breakfast was a buffet. Dinner could be had at one of the 3 restaurants at the resort. But for lunch, only one restaurant was open, and it was table service at 12 o'clock sharp, and there were assigned tables that you would share with other couples. So I think this is genius. People can't spend every single minute only talking to their significant other, at least most people, and definitely not me and this guy I was with. I think that without this somewhat forced shared lunch with other people, this resort would probably be full of couples who were annoyed with each other, maybe some loud fighting, why do you always, why do you never? And then the result would be full of people who couldn't wait to leave. So I think this shared lunch was an awesome business move by this resort. So we sat down at our table with 3 other couples. I think all of us would have, at that point, rather not have to share a table with other people. It takes effort to make conversation. But we all accepted the situation, and we gave it a go. So at our table, there was a married couple in their early 40s to my left, an elderly couple to my partner's right, and another couple across from us who seemed to be a little new to each other. It was hard to tell, but there was no rings, and they just had the vibe of people who didn't know each other very well. So we all introduced ourselves, and at first it was awkward, like really awkward. But a few of us were good conversationalists and started talking about general things. Where's everyone from? and everyone was relatively local. They came from the Bronx, nearby in Pennsylvania. One couple was from Staten Island. And we asked, has anyone checked out the pool yet? Did you just arrive today? And everyone had just arrived that morning. We described our rooms. It was everyone's first time at this resort. We talked about other resorts in the Poconos, chit-chat stuff, nothing deep. The two married couples, the ones to my right and my partner's left, after the initial period of awkwardness, that first lunch, they were easy to talk to. So we eventually engaged really easily, while the couple across from me that seemed new sat silently and gave awkward one-word answers. I am glad that me and my vacation partner weren't alone at a table with them. That would have been awful. So my vacation partner, who I think I will call Fred, and I were distracted from our mutual dissatisfaction with each other. We were distracted with some lighthearted conversation and some very sociable, except for that new couple across from us, very sociable people with good manners and good social skills. And we all enjoyed our lunch, and we said goodbye until tomorrow at lunch because you sat with the same people for the whole time. And we all went off to explore the resort and the Pocono Mountains. That afternoon, Fred and I went in the pool. We worked out a little at the gym, took a walk on a trail, spoke in the other language because we had nothing to talk about. And that night, we went to one of the restaurants that was open for dinner, just the two of us, no assigned table partners. And we managed to get along and find some things to talk about. And we went to a little bar and listened to a singer before heading back to the room. And that night, I had a dream. So this relationship was so over that I had actually fashioned a little bed for myself on the other side of the room, made out of pillows and an extra comforter. So I was laying in that little makeshift indoor campsite, and I was in that in-between level of consciousness right before you fall into a deep sleep. I looked it up. It's called hypnagogia. The link is in the show notes. So when I had this dream, well, it wasn't really a dream. It was a strong awareness of a young woman behind me, and I was looking over my shoulder at her. And she was all light, bright, vivacious, shimmery. And the words that came with her were bubbly and curvy. Those were the words that popped into my head while I was looking over my shoulder at this girl in my vision dream. Bubbly and curvy. I whispered, "Who are you?" And at first there was no answer, just a friendly, energetic, reassuring presence, all bathed in shimmery light, and then just two words from this spirit. And the words were, "I'm okay." I knew that there was a message for somebody involved here. And I knew that this spirit needed to cross over and that I would learn who she was when the time was right. And then I fell asleep, right there on the floor. In the morning, we went to the breakfast buffet. And after that, I went in the pool. I love pools. If there is a pool, I have to go in. I don't do laps or anything. I like to do underwater resistance exercises, and I also like to just sort of splash around. And I don't remember if Fred joined me that morning. And then, after that, for lunch, we reconvened at our assigned table with our assigned new friends. And the awkward silent couple with the one-word answers, however, was not there. After we arrived at 12 at our table, we saw them, the awkward couple, at a two-top on the other side of the restaurant. The restaurant had just a few two-tops, I guess for antisocial people like them. I guess they didn't like us. We laughed. as we sat down. And we enjoyed another lunch together, the six of us, and we talked about jobs, hometowns, things like that. Slightly deeper than the chit-chat of the day before, and they were all very, very pleasant people, like me. And Fred actually turned out to be pretty good at socializing with strangers. Not that that would make me want to stay with him, but I will say he did have that redeeming quality. We all parted ways again after that lunch, and I don't remember what we did that afternoon. I'm sure I went in the pool again, and I do remember spending some time apart from Fred on one of the afternoons there, so that's probably what happened. I went to the pool again, which Fred probably found annoying. That night we had dinner at one of the restaurants, and then we went to the little nightclub at the resort where a band was playing top 40 covers. We danced a little. Fred, as I mentioned before, was actually a really good dancer. Still, not enough for me to stay with him, but I will give him that. He was good at socializing with strangers, and he was a good dancer. I remember going up to the band leader when the band was on a break and complimenting him on how good the band was. And I remember getting super annoyed with Fred for saying that he is also in show business because he sings karaoke once a month at a bar in Queens, which I'm sorry is not being in show business. And then I remember Fred telling me that me telling the band leader that I liked the band made him jealous. Like I said, this relationship was over. So that was the last night at the resort, that nightclub night. And I went back to my little campsite on the floor of the room. Now, I had chosen to do this. Fred had not made me sleep on the floor. It was all my choice. And there were no messages from any spirits that night. And we woke up relatively early as checkout was after breakfast and before lunch, although lunch was still included. So we packed up the car and headed to our assigned table to see our assigned lunch friends. I was looking forward to talking with them and getting a break from Fred. We still had that hour-and-a-half car ride that afternoon to get through, so this would be a good distraction until then. By this time, this third lunch in a row, we were all getting pretty friendly. By this time we had joked around, talked about our lives a little, and during the conversation at this last lunch, the subject of children came up. "Do you have any kids?" Fred asked the couple in their 40s. "No," the man answered, looking away from Fred. "Yes, we do," his wife said, looking at her husband angrily. And the rest of us stayed silent, letting this exchange happen, wondering what it could mean. "We have a daughter," the woman finally said after a few moments. Her husband was looking down at the table. "And she passed away 2 years ago. She was only 25. We sat there silently, and Fred murmured, "I'm sorry." "I'm so sorry," I joined him. "We don't talk about it much," she said. And then, after another moment of silence, the elderly couple spoke up. And the wife said, "We have a son, and he passed away 10 years ago. He was only 30. And we all just looked around at each other. Finally, I broke the silence, and I said, "I guess we were meant to sit together this weekend." And I knew in my heart that that was true. Both of these couples had lost their only child, and now they were together. "Tell us about your daughter," the wife of the elderly couple said. And they began to describe her. She was wonderful, active, enthusiastic, beautiful, with a vivacious personality that lit up a room. And then the dad said, "She was so bubbly and curvy," I thought. I began to realize that this daughter was the spirit that had stood behind me on that first night there. The young woman behind me, bathed in light with the vivacious energy, the one who was bubbly. That was the spirit of their daughter who had passed away 2 years ago. At that point, I stayed quiet about my dream. It was not the right time to talk about it. The younger couple was getting to share with this older couple who had tragically been through the same thing. And the elderly couple was listening to this mother and father share their grief. And the older couple knew exactly what to ask, when to talk, and when to listen. Fred and I stayed quiet while this conversation unfolded, and I knew that this was a miraculous gathering brought together by the powers that be. They talked a long time, all through lunch, and although Fred and I were just listening, we were very much a part of this conversation. Both couples shared some details of what had happened, and the older couple encouraged the younger couple to keep talking about it, to join a bereavement group, to keep their daughter's memory alive by talking about her and what they loved about her. The lunch sort of wrapped up naturally, and as we were wrapping things up, I said again to everyone that we were obviously all meant to meet here this weekend. And as we all stood up, I said quietly to the younger mom, I said, "I have to tell you something." And we went off to the side while the others were standing and saying goodbye. And I told her, I am a medium. And I told her that her daughter had come to me in a dream the first night we were here, and that in the dream, she was exactly as they had been describing her, full of light, vivacious, energetic, and bubbly. She laughed, and I told her, actually, the words were bubbly and curvy. Does that describe her? And she laughed some more. Oh, yes, that is her. And this mom believed, so I went ahead and delivered the message that I had been given. She needs you to know that she is okay. She has been waiting to tell you that. This mom was so happy and said that she would tell her husband. We all said goodbye, and as Fred and I were walking out, the mom walked quickly towards me again and asked me to tell her again about her daughter's message. I repeated the story. I was so happy to help, and I wrote down my phone number in case she ever had any questions. After checkout, they had this thing where you could stay on the grounds of the resort. You could use the facilities for the rest of the day, and they had lockers where you could put like your bathing suit and stuff. So I, of course, headed to the pool without Fred at first. He went to do something else. And I was the only person there at the indoor pool. So now I knew it was time to send this bubbly, curvy girl to the other side. Now that she had gotten this message to her mother, she was ready to go. I had a conversation with her at the side of the pool. I don't remember exactly how it went, but I know I was able to help her cross over, which takes a minute, and there's some arm waving and other gestures involved. And when I finished, I saw that Fred was watching me from the hallway outside the pool. And I didn't care. And I didn't elaborate on what I had been doing. You know, he was there when I was telling the mom the second time, so he knew what I was doing. And again, to his credit, he was cool with it. Not that I would stay with him, but he was cool with it. So we went in the pool, me and Fred. And it was pretty awkward. I just kept swimming away from him until he finally just got out and said he'd meet me in the car. I swam for a few minutes after he left. I took a shower, changed into my clothes out of the locker, and I met him in the parking lot. We managed to get along for the car ride home by listening to songs in this other language and translating them. And we reached the city, and I basically broke up with him the minute I got my bags out of the car, which ended in a little bit of a scene there on the sidewalk outside of my house. where he said that he was actually going to break up with me because I had told him a few weeks ago that I never wanted to go on a cruise, and cruises are very important to him. And I said, that's fine then, you broke up with me. And then there was some low-level stalking for about 2 days after that, and then it was over. So this story is clearly not about me and Fred. This story is about the unbelievable organization and higher plan of the universe to bring the right people together at the right time for higher good. The universe brought these two grieving couples together so they could share with one another the feelings around something that no parent should have to go through. The universe brought Fred, who brought up the subject of children by starting that conversation. And the universe removed the awkward couple who probably would not have understood and probably prevented this open, vulnerable exchange from happening. They had that vibe. And the universe brought me, a medium, who could receive a message from a lingering spirit and pass it on, bringing, hopefully, a tiny bit of relief to these grieving parents. And since the bubbly, curvy daughter was able to get her message to her mom, I, the medium who was brought into this scene, was able to help her cross over. And this type of thing happens all the time. Gatherings and chance encounters of the right people at the right time. I encourage you to pay attention to these coincidences that I truly believe are not coincidences. And then you, too, can receive the help and blessings that the universe has arranged for you. If you've enjoyed this episode of My True Ghost Stories, please like and subscribe and share to help this show grow. And that's all for today. Thank you for listening to today's episode. And if you think your house is haunted, want energy cleared from your space, or need a custom spiritual ritual, I'm here to help. Visit jpclearing.com or email me at jpclearing60@gmail.com. Don't forget to join me here every Tuesday for a new episode. Until next time.